Yeah, so my name is Ryan Walters. I'm from San Jose, California. I grew up in the Bay Area. I currently work at Kiehl's on Fillmore and Pine. It's a skincare company. I've worked there since August, and I'm currently a part-time student at Academy of Art. It's on its 11th cycle, going to be 12th now, for I believe 12 years. And it started out as basically a place for people to come together and raise awareness for HIV/AIDS, to find a cumulative goal to try and end AIDS, to find a cure, to pay for medication for people who can't afford it. There's just so many great benefits towards this organization. It's actually run by San Francisco AIDS Foundation and collaboratively with LA and Gay Lesbian Center in Los Angeles. So. I signed up for AIDS Lifecycle because I loved somebody that was HIV positive. And he was doing it at the time that we were together, and we decided we were going to do it together. It meant a lot to him. It definitely meant a lot to me. I mean, that was just one of the factors going into why I signed up for AIDS Lifecycle. I feel like that was the initial drive for me doing it, and then after we broke up, I found new reasons to do it. I had several family members growing up. One relative specifically killed himself right when the epidemic hit because there wasn't a cure for AIDS. And there still isn't. There wasn't medication that could sustain a full life having HIV. So that had affected my choice in going into AIDS Lifecycle. And also, I had lived with somebody who kind of took me in when my parents weren't so accepting of my sexuality and my orientation. It took a long time for us to get closer, and we moved in with a friend's dad who was living HIV positive but wasn't out with it. It was the stigma that accompanied it that could have ruined his career and his life. So, I mean, there were definitely multiple factors into why I joined. I would have to say I mainly did it, though, for pretty much my stepfather, that guy who took me in and gave me a home to live in when I didn't have a family and when I didn't have a home. And he was a really strong, incredible person and wise and endearing. And I would have never have thought that he was HIV positive in a million years, just because he was so strong. Life cycle, it's interesting. I mean, you go into it so nervous and so excited, and you're riding a bike from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Who does that? It's so absurd, and the whole experience in itself is just filled with people who eventually become your family during this week. I mean, you wake up with them early morning, you have breakfast with them, you ride with them, you laugh with them, you cry with them, all these emotions just surge through you. You hear these amazing stories at nighttime during the announcements that they would have after you ride in for about 10 hours on your bike, 80 miles to 100 miles a day. And you hear people who have multiple sclerosis, people who this one woman recently had gotten hit by a Pepsi truck, a month prior to the ride, and severed many bones in her body, and is going to be suffering from chronic pain for the rest of her life. She was on the ride. I mean, there's just people who put so much physical and mental strain that it pushes, somebody like me who really has no excuse to make it through that day. It was unbelievable. I mean, you come back from this experience just realizing how much of life we take for granted, and just on a day-to-day situation, coming back to work and dealing with customers in retail, it's such an extreme because on Lifecycle, the people there were just so friendly. They would go out of their way to ask if you're. It was just so motivational and inspiring. Every day was a blessing. I mean, I was smiling in every picture that I took. You couldn't see it. I was ecstatic, and that was the same exact positivity and feedback you'd get from everyone on the ride. You're surrounded by love. That's what I would say. Yeah, it's family. I think that its life cycle, among being there to pay for medication for people who can't afford it, paying for just us going and getting our HIV tests, every 6 months, bringing awareness, finding a cure, among all those things, I feel like AIDS life cycle, what brings most to the community is it brings a sense of awareness to the younger generation that didn't live through the epidemic when it was really an epidemic, when it was a pandemic. I mean, when people were dropping like flies, when friends were people in this of like 50, 60 years old right now, lost a lot of friends. Like they lived through a completely different experience that we don't even know much about, and to share that with people, I think is one of the most important things. I think it's important for the older generations to speak up and come out with it and tell their stories, even though it might be really hard for them, even though that it might cause emotional strain on them to look back at those memories. They are memories for, I feel like, our generation to stand up and act upon it. It breaks my heart. Like, it broke my heart when I was dating somebody HIV positive. It broke my heart to know that somebody so close to me that I would call stepfather, passed away several years ago because of a weakened immune system, that led to a heart attack. So it's really a rough thing to talk about, but I think that's ultimately what Lifecycle brings to the community. It brings a sense of awareness to something that needs to end. It would be like a battle that I just won. I mean, I feel very strongly about activism and about, several family members living with cancer and finding a cure for that, or whatever the disease is, whether it's Parkinson's. I mean, there's so much out in the world today that's affecting so many communities, more specifically with San Francisco being one of the largest cities living with a high population of people HIV positive, and especially affecting me and you. I mean, I specifically remember the first time I got checked. I never wore condoms. I was very sexually promiscuous. I went in to get checked, and I remember the woman came back. It was Out of the Closet in Los Angeles when I was living there. The woman comes back and she says, "Thank God you've been kissed by an angel." And it was an eye-opener to me because I lost it. I just remember thinking like, wow, I've been so stupid. I've made such bad decisions. Being an addict, being sexually promiscuous, being not wearing protection, not getting checked. Fucking do it. It's amazing. It's the experience of your life.